All right, let's get you now some breaking news coming in on the broadcast. The London explosion has been declared a terror attack. That's the latest information coming in. The London explosion has been declared a terror attack. Let's quickly get in Ananya Dasgupta with more details. Ananya, what are you picking up?
Is now confirming this, Uday, and that too at least an hour or more after the incident itself. Just take a look at this tweet. They've been posting a series of tweets in the past 1 hour, and the London police, in fact, have maintained that they do not want to share information unless that information is confirmed, is verified, and is accurate. But now they've put out this tweet just a few minutes ago that the Met's Counter-Terrorism Command are investigating after the incident at Parsons Green Tube Station is declared a terrorist incident. So this tweet has been posted just a few minutes ago by the Metropolitan Police on their website, and the police have now confirmed that they received the first call at around 8:20 in the morning London time. They were called to Parsons Green Station following reports of a fire on a train, and emergency services remain at the spot. So a series of tweets being posted by London Metropolitan Police. They are retweeting the fire brigade, the ambulance service, emergency responders at the spot. All of those teams there, medics are there. Most people have been evacuated. And Uday, in fact, in the last hour, we've seen some dramatic scenes of passengers being evacuated from that train. They were brought out from the driver's side of the train, and they were walking on the tracks, crossing the tracks, and were being evacuated by the police and teams at the spot. But what can now be confirmed, and it's coming straight from the Metropolitan Police, that this is indeed being treated as a terrorist incident.
Absolutely. Well, thanks indeed, Ananya, for joining us with details of that news break. In fact, on that note, we're going to cut across to more international reports coming in with regards to this London terror incident.
Distressed by the whole thing, and passengers had to try to calm them down. But what was disconcerting for them, and you see behind me just the buses about to be moved here, what was disconcerting for them was that they were stuck on a train. They could see fire engines arriving, they could see ambulances arriving. It was quite a distressing thing to be involved in and be stuck on the train, but she said that everyone was quite stoic and trying to calm each other down until they were eventually led to safety.
And as far as, I mean, you're on the Fulham Road now, it's a very wide cordon that the police have now established around this incident.
Yeah, and we can assume that there are, two reasons for that. One is possible fears of another incident, another explosion, and they also, of course, want to create a large sterile area to be able to work in without members of the public and the media getting in their way. So the initial cordon, which was set up when the emergency services first arrived, has gradually been pushed further and further back, and now it extends to several hundred yards away. So we have no vantage point on Parsons Green Station from where we are. It's just round the corner and up to the left there. So the police are still allowing, obviously, ambulances and so forth through, but we haven't seen any ambulances leaving here, which would suggest that there haven't been any casualties, certainly in the last hour or so. If other casualties were reported, they've been long since taken to hospital for treatment.
We don't have any details at all as far as the number of people who might have been hurt.
No, we don't, and the reports that we are getting on injuries are they're not coming from the ambulance service or from the authorities. They are people telling us that they saw injured people. Some people were saying that they saw injuries that looked like burn injuries. Some are telling us that they were injuries that are caused from falls as people panicked and tried to get out of the train station and go down upstairs as quickly as possible. People were falling over each other. There's a few crush injuries. So just kind of have to move out of the way again slightly, Adam, as this bus is just being driven away from the area. This is one of those buses which was just abandoned in the road now, and they're obviously having to move it out of the way and take it back to its depot. Public transport, of course, severely affected in this area. The district line has been closed between Wimbledon and further along. Closure is at the moment, but clearly major problems for commuters in London. A lot of the people that we talked to were on their way to work and have either given up on their attempts to get to work or they're trying to find an alternative way of getting there.
Thank you. It's now been confirmed the Prime Minister will chair a meeting of Cobra at 1 o'clock today in Downing Street. Cabinet Office Briefing Room A, back in action there, a Cobra meeting at 1 o'clock today. And we can speak now, I think, to Chris Wildish, who was a passenger on the train. He joins us now on the phone. Mr. Wildish, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Can you tell us what happened to you?
I was one carriage up from the back of the train where the device went off. We were just pulling into Parsons Green tube station. The train came to a stop, and the next thing there was, out of the corner of my eye, a massive flash of flame that kind of went up the side of the train. And then two things happened. A really acrid smell, chemical smell, ran through the train, and then what can best be described as a stampede as people tried to get away from what was happening.
And this was your carriage, was it, in which this...
Oh, no, I was one carriage down. It was in the back carriage, the last carriage. I was in the second to back carriage.
And everyone was able to get out of the train or run away, stampede, as you put it, immediately, were they? Well,
it was strange. It almost happened in two phases, because you had the kind of an initial people getting away from the scene of it, and then it kind of lulled for a while, and then I think the penny dropped that something was happening, and then it happened again. By that stage, some doors had opened so people could get off the train and onto the platform. But I think the concern is there are a lot of school kids on the train, and I think a lot of them got knocked over and bumped, and you're trying to stop a wholesale kind of stampede taking place. But there was a lot of fear, and people were doing their damnedest to get away from the device and what was happening. And
you yourself, did you stay in the carriage, or were you able to leave?
I got off the carriage, no problem. I got back on the carriage, maybe rather foolishly, because there was a young schoolgirl who was trying to get her phone to call her mother, so we were trying to get to her phone. And there was a mother who had left her pushchair on the train, so that's when we went back on to try and get the pushchair back. And that's funny, that's when I saw the device, and that's when we got to see what the device was.
And what did you see?
The best way to describe it is a white builder's bucket. And it was in one of those kind of foil carrier bags that are insulated. And when I saw it, there was still some flames coming out the top of the bucket and a number of wires hanging out the side of it. So no doubt in my mind that it was a device of some sort. How sophisticated it was, I don't know. Very, very strong smell of chemical residue, very strong acrid smell in the train, a chemical smell as opposed to a burning smell.
So no doubt in your mind that this was a deliberate incident, not some sort of bizarre...
Yeah, but also they have said that they are treating it as a suspected terrorist incident. Still not enough information to get that confirmed, but the counter-terrorism police have certainly been on the ground there and have been together with the Metropolitan Police and the British Transport Police, and to try and examine exactly what there is over there in order to make any connections or to link or to indeed confirm anything about that incident as well. But of course this does bring back memories of what had happened in London back in 2005, the summer of 2005, when there were multiple suicide bombings across the London Underground network, in which 52 people died. That memory is still painfully recent for Londoners here who remember the chaos that it caused in the city itself. And it's that chaos and that sense of panic as well, which is also what police are trying to prevent, so thereby getting people to stay away from that area. In fact, that part of the underground line, the line itself, which the station is located on, is completely closed down as well, which of course doesn't make it any easier for Londoners who are trying to travel about the city as well. It's quite a populated area, and of course it took place during the rush hour, so that really does cause that extra confusion and that extra sense of panic there when such an incident like this happens. But judging from what we've seen from those pictures of that device that has been circulating about on social media, it looks like a very crude device, a bucket with wires coming out of it, placed in a plastic bag. There's nothing confirmed about that yet, but passengers who were on that train said that they, certainly witnesses said that they saw a fireball coming down that carriage. Some passengers fled that train with facial injuries, but of course there were injuries from people who were trying to escape the scrum as in the panic in the immediate aftermath of that attack as well. Once the emergency services had tended to them, they're just focused on keeping that area clear as possible. But yes, of course, this does create yet another cause of concern.
A train full of people, plus those waiting to get on the train at the station, trying to get off the station. So it took quite a while to drain the station, but it was very orderly. People were very supportive of each other, trying to help those that were in trouble. The police, as I say, were fantastic. So yeah, all very ordered.
And have you been able to go about your business now? How have you got on to where you were trying to go to, or have you managed?
No, they've asked people who witnessed and saw the device to stay in the general area. So, and second to that, my office is in Paddington and there's no way out. So I've either got a long walk ahead of me or I'll turn around and head home, depending on what happens.
Well, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us, and our sympathies for what you've been through this morning.
Thank you very much. No problem. Thank you.
The Prime Minister has tweeted, "My thoughts are with those injured at Parsons Green and the emergency services who are responding bravely to this terrorist incident." She will be chairing a meeting of Cobra, we're told, at 1 p.m. this afternoon in Downing Street. Joining us now from Tunbridge is Andy Trotter. He's a former Chief Constable of the British Transport Police. Mr. Trotter, your reaction to this morning's developments?
Well, obviously very sad to hear of those injuries at our Counter-Terrorism Command have taken over the investigation. But it's still very early days, I think, to speculate about exactly what we've got here. Clearly, they'll start from the supposition this is a terrorist incident and then work back. It's still very, very early for what happened here.
How extensive will the CCTV be in terms of tracking down who might be responsible for this?
It will be very comprehensive. All along that section, there'll be the CCTV on the stations, and there'll be CCTV on the trains as well. So there'll be lots of coverage there. There are various interfaces, as you probably know, on the District Line with the Overground, with British Rail lines, Network Rail lines, and of course there'll be more CCTV there. So I think it's an excellent chance of them picking up the person responsible.
We saw the announcement from the senior officer in the Transport Police saying that this was now a matter for the terrorist police, the anti-terror squad. So, I mean, how will they work together?
Well, they work very well together. Obviously, they've had a lot of experience, unfortunately, working together. British Transport Police and the Met and the Counter-Terrorism Command have dealt with an awful lot of incidents together over the years. They rehearse, they exercise. This is a very, very well-oiled machine. We saw an excellent response, as we'd expect, from London's emergency services this morning, and it will smoothly hand over from BTP through to the Counter-Terrorism Command, and then all the relevant experts will be there examining this device to see exactly what we've got there.
And how much information do you think they'll be able to gather from the device? Presumably at some point they'll have to clear it and move the train.
Oh yes, of course, but they'll take their time. I mean, if you look at the photographs that are on the web at the moment, I mean, if that is what we're looking at, it's a strange-looking one. Looks very crude. Looks like there are some wires and lights on the end, almost like Christmas tree lights, one of which seems to be illuminated. It looks a very crude device. It doesn't mean it wasn't an attempt, at a terrorist attack. There are a range of possibilities that they will investigate to find out exactly what's happened here.
And why is transport such a popular target for people who want to do this sort of thing?
Well, clearly people who want to cause problems will look for crowded places and places that get a lot of publicity. We've seen the attacks on London Bridge, we've seen the Westminster Bridge, the attacks in Manchester, but we go back, of course, to the 7/7 attacks, which caused such devastation because they are very, very tempting targets for terrorists because they will get a lot of people in one place, they'll get a lot of publicity, and it will create a great deal of fear, which is quite naturally. So, transport hubs anywhere in the world, be they airports, or be they planes or buses, will always be a target for the terrorists.
And because people are moving around as quick as they can, they're open targets as well.
Yes, of course. We're never going to have airline-type security on the underground or on buses or trains, so they are a tempting target. But, of course, we've seen that any crowded place, be it Borough Market, these are tempting places for terrorists. We must take reasonable precautions, but equally, life has got to carry on. And, we've got to make sure that we stay alert all the time, that we are very, very quick to report any suspicious packages to the police, and let them know anything they should know about, so that we can intervene as soon as possible.
I mean, that presumably is one of the difficulties of investigating after an incident like this, that there is a quite natural desire to want to get things back to normal as soon as possible, but you're also looking at a crime site.
Oh, very much so. This will be treated as a crime scene very, very carefully. And whilst we want to get London back on the move as quickly as we can, we all know that's an extremely busy line. But the investigation will take primacy on this, and they'll take as much time as is necessary.
Mr. Trotter, thank you, Mr. Trotter, for joining us with your expert view from the position of being a former Transport Police senior officer. Well, a short time ago, we spoke to the Foreign Secretary and, of course, the former Mayor of London, Boris Johnson, about the incident.
Well, I'm afraid my information is limited, and it really is important not to speculate at the moment. I think obviously everybody should keep calm and go about their lives in the normal way, as normal as they possibly can. As far as I understand the matter, the British Transport Police, TfL are on it, and they will be updating their websites as and when we get more information.
And that was Boris Johnson speaking before the police had confirmed that they are investigating what they consider to be a terrorist incident. Well, let's talk now to Major General Chip Chapman, former Ministry of Defence counter-terror chief, who joins us now. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. What do you make of this incident in terms of the scale of the terror intent, if you like?
Well, Neil Basu, the counter-terrorist coordinator from the Met, has now declared this a terrorist incident. So you can say it's a terrorist incident. Secondly, if you look at the modus operandi, the way it was carried out, the three threat streams that we have in the UK, that's Islamist jihadists, right-wing, and Northern Ireland dissident Republicans, you can almost certainly say that this is Islamist jihadist violence. It's no accident, as Mr. Trotter said, that this is in both a confined space where the potential for real casualties of a great scale are there, and it is a crowded place. It seems to me that this bomb at the moment, assuming it was some sort of bomb, either malfunctioned or it wasn't the normal TATP, that's triacetone triperoxide, used by, for example, groups like IS. It looks more like the Tsarnaev brothers, the Boston bombers of April 2013. So it almost looks like a pressure cooker device. So it was either malfunctioned because using chemicals, and I know one of your previous correspondents said there was a chemical smell, so mixing chemicals can be quite difficult, and detonating them can also be quite difficult.
And there is information available on the internet, presumably and elsewhere, on how to build these sort of improvised devices.
Yeah, this information originally came from Al-Qaeda. They had a series of magazines, and still do, called Inspire, and pressure cooker bombs, for example, in there are sort of available. But if you try and access that, then of course you're going to be on a datum point and a database, which if you put together with other datum points means that we're highly likely to catch you.
Why do you say that you can be pretty clear that this is Islamist-inspired?
Because you don't have any examples of right-wing extremists or Northern Ireland dissident Republicans using bombs in either trains or subways. And of course we had this from 7/7 and the Madrid bombing. So absolutely 100% sure that this is Islamist jihadists and not one of the other threat streams.
And people, I mean, how does it work that people just do this? Is the advice not only how to build a bomb, but where to put it?
Yeah, and again, the sort of crowded places is coming to view for a number of reasons. That is exactly why you want a confined area if you're using the vehicle as a bomb, which is a vehicle as a weapon, which of course we've seen also in the last year. So the maximum number of people that you can kill by using some sort of mass device is the intent. And threat is, of course, intent, capability, and opportunity. And a crowded place such as a tube gives you the opportunity. It's worth looking at the scale of these things. So, for example, 1.2 billion people use the tube, and we've securitized, for example, airports, and only 238 million, for example, in 2014 used our airports. So the scale of trying to securitize the underground is a real challenge, and really is not economically viable.
I mean, what we can also say about this incident is that it clearly wasn't a suicide attack, and also that it appears to be fairly crude, fairly low-tech.
Fairly crude, fairly low-tech, or just the technical challenge of putting something together was beyond the person or persons who were behind this. It's also worth saying that this is probably not a lone wolf. So, for example, if you look at the 2 London attacks and the Manchester attack and the follow-up arrests, and we saw the number of arrests for the year to June 2017 come out yesterday at 379, that there were 21, 12 and 23 follow-up arrests from the London and Manchester attacks. So once we've pinned down who did this, I'm sure there'll be further arrests. It's very rare that there's a lone wolf, and I wouldn't suspect this is a lone wolf, particularly in terms of trying to mix chemical components. And that will be one of the questions that they're going to be asking at Cobra. Was this someone acting as part of a network? And if it is a part of a network, then there's a potential, for example, for JTAC, the Joint Terrorism Analysis Centre, to review the threat level. And as you know, we've been at severe since August 2014 in the UK.
And given the CCTV, the monitoring on the underground system, and also the fact that the site of the crime was not destroyed, that presumably should mean that it will be fairly easy or quick to identify pictures of the individual responsible.
Yeah, there are both forensic fingerprints and technical fingerprints, and of course they'll also be looking slightly wider than that, so you can range in on, for example, not only CCT coverage, but for example mobile phone coverage and pinpoint mobile phones at various places and backtrack to locations from that. Once you get that, you can find out sort of computer records and things like that. So those are things actually which will come up with the security services inputs at Cobra at 1300 today.
Major General, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let's go to Sky correspondent, senior correspondent Jason Farrell, who is in the area. Jason.
Oh, hi, Adam. Well, yes, I'm here down in Parsons Green. I'm joined by Luke Walmsley, who was on the train. Luke, obviously, an extremely traumatic morning for you. Can you just talk us through what you experienced?
I was travelling from Wimbledon to Notting Hill Gate on the District Line, so that's the open format tube, and as it pulled into Parsons Green, slowing down, there was a loud I had my one headphone in, and there was a loud shriek to my left, and I turned, and sort of a remnants of a flash and a smoke, and then just hordes of people, and the stampede had already started running towards me. Within about 5 seconds, it was just apparent it was not a safe place to be. And then, as the doors opened, people were running down the platform, down the stairs, got backlogged by the barriers not opening. It was a big crush, and I was still on the train, and then people shouting sort of, was there an assailant? Has he got a knife? That type of thing. And that's when sort of a real shake-up happened.
And did you see injuries?
Yeah. Can you? Severe hand, foot, head injuries from the stampede. It's got every man for himself when that happened, but the burns victims, sort of severe leg, both legs. And there's no sign of clothing, so it's just torn through. What sign of clothing? So
the clothing being burnt off or torn off, or
yeah.
And can you just describe the kind of what the train was like when you?
It's a very busy commuter train, young and old, school children going to their schools in town. and that's one of the daunting things, or the most haunting images I've seen is nannies trying to look for kids because of the rush of people just taking 5, 6-year-olds away from them, and they're trying to look for them. And
And in that moment of chaos, presumably there were people trying to help each other out, and
so when people realised they couldn't get off the platform, it was there were people filming it, there were people taking pictures. There's no real sign that someone had called the emergency services.
Right.
About 15, 20 seconds later, the first 4 firemen came running down the platform, but members of the public had already started helping those most needed.
Emergency services attended, and at this stage we are treating the matter as a terrorist-related incident, and the Metropolitan Police Counter-Terrorism Command will take responsibility for that investigation. At this stage it's a little early to draw any full conclusions as to what the circumstances and cause of that explosion are, and we are investigating and exploring that at the moment. We will give further information throughout the day, but for now we just remind people to remain alert.